You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because the voice in your head made you believe that starting and failing would be worse than never starting at all. So you wait, you scroll, you plan, you prepare. But beneath all that motion is a secret ritual, avoidance disguised as discipline. You've learned how to look productive while staying invisible, how to dream without risking anything real, how to stall your life so perfectly that even you start to believe in your own performance. You tell yourself, I'm not ready, but readiness is just a myth you repeat to avoid confronting what you truly fear. The possibility that you are ready and still won't be enough. The voice in your head didn't come from nowhere. It was forged in the silence of your failures, in the stares that judged you, in the words that cut deep, in the years you tried, and nothing seemed to change. It wears the mask of your conscience. But it's not your truth. It's your trauma pretending to be logic. Nietzsche warned us, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And yet here you are, fighting your own reflection, becoming the very voice that once crushed you, a perfectionist executioner whispering, not yet, not good enough, not today. You don't live in time, you live in hesitation, a purgatory where nothing begins and nothing ends. You mistake paralysis for prudence, doubt for wisdom, fear for facts. But what if that voice is wrong? What if you are already ready and that's what terrifies you? Because if you are ready, then the delay is no longer protection. It's self-betrayal. And deep down, you've known for a long time. You don't want to be ready, you want to be invulnerable, untouchable, so perfect that failure wouldn't dare approach you. But beneath that armor of precision is fear. Not the kind that screams, the kind that whispers, you remember what happened last time, don't let it happen again. Perfectionism isn't your strength, it's your anesthesia, a way to keep moving without ever arriving, a way to stay clean by never touching anything real. You weren't born afraid to begin. That came later, after the times you did try and no one noticed, after the times you gave everything and it still collapsed. Now your mind demands impossibility, not because it believes you can achieve it, but because it knows you'll never start trying. That's the trick. If the bar is unreachable, you'll never have to feel the weight of not reaching it. So you call it high standards, you call it discipline, but it's not. It's self-abandonment wearing the clothes of ambition. The need to be flawless is not noble. It's neurotic. It's what happens when failure becomes so unbearable that you would rather not exist than risk being seen trying. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're starving your soul of the one thing it truly needs, the sacred chaos of beginning before you're certain. Perfectionism isn't a virtue. It's a graveyard for unlived lives, and yours is waiting for you beneath all that polished control, that voice in your head, the one that tells you you're not ready, not capable, not enough. It doesn't belong to you. It was implanted, layer by layer, through comparisons you didn't ask for, through silences that spoke louder than words, through moments when the world looked at you and quietly decided you weren't what it hoped. You weren't born doubting yourself. You learned to. The child you once were didn't hesitate to act, didn't second-guess every breath. That came later, when the small wounds piled into something louder, until eventually your own mind began to sound like your enemies. So now you call it realism. You call it being grounded, but it's not realism. It's fear speaking in your name. The voice you hear when you try to change, the one that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" That's not conscience, that's conditioning. It's the echo of humiliation dressed as humility. It's the residue of ridicule that never got fully felt. So now it speaks before you do, cutting you down before the world has the chance. It tells you you're protecting yourself, but it's lying. You're not protecting yourself. You're repeating what once protected you. There was a time you needed that voice. It helped you survive. But survival is not the same as living. And now the enemy is no longer outside. It's inside, speaking with your tongue, thinking with your brain, feeling like it's you, but it's not you. It's just the ghost of every moment you were made to feel small, still trying to keep you safe, even if it costs you your life. You wait for the moment when the fear will vanish, when your hands won't tremble, when the voice in your chest finally says, "Now." But that moment doesn't come, because readiness isn't a state, it's a consequence. The courage you want only appears after you move, like warmth after the flame, like confidence after the collapse. You've been lied to, taught that the brave don't feel fear, that the successful had some inner clarity before they started. But the truth is far more brutal and far more liberating. No one begins ready. We begin unsure, incomplete, in pain. And in the friction between terror and action, we become. It's not that you're unprepared, it's that you've mistaken the discomfort of growth for a sign to stop. You've internalized the myth that things must feel aligned before they become real. But alignment is not something you wait for, it's something you forge in motion. The identity you long for, the one who speaks, creates, dares, that self doesn't exist yet. They are waiting on the other side of your failure. They are sculpted by every crack, every attempt, every time you move despite not knowing how. You want to feel like the person you're trying to become, but that person only comes alive through your imperfection. So stop asking, "Am I ready?" The answer is always no, because readiness is the reward, not the requirement. You're not waiting to feel prepared, you're waiting for permission, for someone to look at you and say it's time. For a sign, a signal, a voice outside your own to whisper, "You're allowed to begin." But adulthood has no such luxury. No one is coming to bless your becoming. No one will hand you the script that says, "This is who you are allowed to be now." So you delay. You stay close to the familiar, even when it suffocates you. You mistake the approval of others for the foundation of your identity. But that's not identity. That's obedience. And deep down, you've already abandoned parts of yourself to maintain a peace that only exists when you're silent. The fear isn't just about failing, it's about being seen in your rawness, looking ridiculous, being judged, disappointing those who only love the version of you that stays small. That fear is the last cord connecting you to a life you've outgrown. You're not just waiting, you're stalling your birth. Because real emergence comes with rupture, with blood, with loneliness, with a silence that no longer protects, but demands. You don't need more time. You don't need more signs. What you need is the courage to exist without permission, even if no one claps, even if no one understands. Because the truth you've postponed is simple. You've always known who you are. You've just been waiting for someone else to say it first. Close your eyes. Stand at the edge of what you want. Feel it, not with hope, with hunger, with dread, with that strange, shaking need that lives behind your ribs. Now notice what your mind does. It tries to build a bridge. It calculates. It hesitates. It begs for one more reason to wait, one more plan, one more reassurance, one more illusion of control. But the bridge will never be finished, because the bridge was never the way. You weren't meant to walk calmly into your life. You were meant to fall into it, to leap with trembling limbs into something that doesn't promise safety, only truth. The panic isn't proof that you're wrong, it's the initiation. The body's way of warning, you're leaving the known, you're leaving the lie. There is no ground until you leap. No clarity until you're mid-air, no self until you've been broken by your own longing and survived it. What you need isn't more certainty. What you need is emotional structure, the kind that lets you fall without vanishing, the kind that knows how to collapse with dignity, the kind that can sit in the dark and whisper, "Even this is part of becoming." You've spent your life trying not to fall, but falling is how the ground finds you. Falling is how your soul remembers its weight. So stop waiting for the bridge. Stop waiting for the map. The next step is not something you see, it's something you become in the air. You live at the edge, not of danger, but of becoming. The edge where things nearly begin, but never quite arrive. You plan, you rehearse. You envisioned a version of you that could exist, but you never let them breathe. Almost becomes your home. It feels like movement, it feels like progress, but it's a loop, a beautiful, well-decorated loop. You stay there because it's safe. In almost, you're still full of potential. You haven't failed. You also haven't lived. There's a certain comfort in delay. It spares you the pain of being seen. It shields you from rejection, from mediocrity, from the humiliation of giving everything and still not being enough. But that comfort is not free. It comes with a cost, and the cost is your soul slowly forgetting how to begin. Every time you stall, a part of you dies, not loudly, not dramatically, but silently, like a page left blank too long until it forgets it was meant to hold a story. This isn't laziness. This is a coping mechanism, a way of staying close to the life you want without ever risking it. But here's the fracture. The longer you stay in almost, the heavier your potential becomes. Not as fuel, but as burden. You weren't meant to carry what you are. You were meant to release it, to ruin it, to try. Not so you would win, but so you would finally stop waiting for the perfect moment that will never come. Almost is an addiction, and its withdrawal is action. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. There's a feeling you know too well, a tightness in your chest, a voice that says something's not right. It arrives just before a decision, a step forward, a leap into the unknown, and you call it intuition. But not all instincts are pure. Not all inner warnings are wisdom. Sometimes the body isn't guiding you forward, it's dragging you back, because fear is clever. It doesn't scream anymore. It whispers, softly, in the tone of reason. What you feel isn't always truth. Sometimes it's trauma, rehearsing its lines. The nervous system doesn't measure truth. It measures familiarity, and growth doesn't feel familiar. So you confuse the discomfort of change with the danger of making a mistake. You mistake activation for alarm. You call it gut feeling, when it's really just memory, echoing through your skin, reminding you of every time you tried and it hurt. That's the paradox. The path to becoming yourself often feels like self-betrayal at first, because who you were is being left behind. You've built an entire identity around avoidance, and now anything that threatens to shatter it, even freedom, feels like a threat. The truth is brutal. Your body can't always tell the difference between the pain of healing and the pain of harm. But you can, not by trusting the first feeling, but by listening to the silence underneath it. If you wait for safety, you'll never move, because safety doesn't precede transformation. It follows it. What comes first is rupture, then resistance, then rebirth. There's a strange kind of pain no one talks about. The pain of living a life that looks like yours, but doesn't feel like home. You wake up, move, respond, perform. But somewhere inside, a quiet question echoes, do I even deserve any of this? It's not guilt in the obvious sense. It's not about mistakes you made. It's deeper, older. It's the residue of a childhood where love was earned through sacrifice, where worthiness came only after pleasing, shrinking, giving too much. So now, even when life offers you something good, you hesitate, you flinch, you sabotage, not because you don't want it, but because a part of you still believes you haven't suffered enough to deserve it. You think you need more pain, more proving, more penance, and until then you delay joy, you delay action, you delay becoming. That's the paradox. You long for change, but carry an invisible script that says, I must remain unfinished until I've bled enough. But who wrote that rule? And how long must you bleed? There is no moral purity in self-denial. There is no redemption in endless hesitation. At some point, guilt becomes a cage you decorate with meaning, but still a cage. You are not the crime, you are not the punishment, you are the one who survived. And the life you dream of, it's not waiting for a cleaner version of you. It's waiting for the one who dares to believe that healing doesn't have to be earned with more pain. You've been waiting for a signal, for the trembling to stop, for the voice in your head to finally say, it's time. But that voice doesn't deal in truth. It deals in patterns, and its favorite pattern is hesitation. It tells you to wait until you're stronger, until you're wiser, until you're someone else. But the voice isn't cruel by nature. It's cautious. It was born in the ruins, raised by the moments that nearly broke you. It learned that silence was safer than exposure, that hiding was survival, so of course it tells you not to begin, not because it hates you, but because it doesn't trust that you'll survive the fall. But you will, not because you're fearless, not because you're finally whole, but because there is something in you more ancient than fear, a voice deeper than doubt. It doesn't scream, it doesn't plead, it waits. It is the part of you that kept breathing even when everything collapsed, the part that never needed permission to exist. The part that already knows you'll mess up, you'll get frustrated, you'll want to return to the comfort of numbness, but you won't stay there because there's something more unbearable than failure, more suffocating than fear, the silence of a life never fully lived. Carl Jung once said, "The thing you most need is where you least want to look." And maybe what you've been avoiding all along is the truth that you've been ready. Since the moment you began waiting, begin. Even if your mind screams, it screams because something inside you is finally waking up.